In a small-town courtroom by the coast, a quiet single father stands with his hands cuffed, his German shepherd at his heel. His eyes are calm, almost too calm for a man accused of assault. The judge smirks, convinced this handyman is just another forgettable veteran. Washed up, anonymous, insignificant. The crowd whispers with amusement as the judge leans forward, enjoying the humiliation. "Tell the court your call sign," he says, expecting a joke, expecting a stumble. Instead, the father speaks. 2 words. The entire room freezes. The judge's face drains of color as he recognizes the name, the one buried in redacted files and whispered only in top-secret briefings. Ghost Talon. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more. A thin winter rain pressed against the courthouse windows in Seabrook Ridge, a coastal town where storms often arrived without warning. Inside the municipal courtroom, the air smelled of wet coats and stale coffee, and the quiet held that nervous tension people instinctively feel when fate tightens invisible strings. Logan Hayes stood in the defendant's area, his wrists cuffed in front, though he made no attempt to shift or resist. Logan was 37, tall with a lean, controlled build, shoulders squared from years of military conditioning, jawline sharp beneath a trimmed beard the color of dark sand. His black hair was cropped close at the sides, a habit left over from Navy SEAL regulations. His eyes were the kind that made people uneasy, not because of anger, but because of how calm they were. Deep gray, still, the eyes of someone who had learned how to breathe in chaos. Beneath the fluorescent courtroom lights, that steadiness looked out of place, almost threatening in its quietness. At his feet lay Kaiser, a German shepherd with sable fur that blended into the shadows like smoke. Kaiser was 6 years old, large and muscular, but not bulky, his stance always balanced as if ready to leap or follow a silent command. His ears were perfectly erect, and his amber eyes were alert but patient, the way only a highly trained K9 learned to be. A jagged scar ran through the fur near his right shoulder, a pale reminder of shrapnel from a mission that had ended with a helicopter submerged in black water. Kaiser's presence was not just imposing, it radiated discipline. He did not fidget, sniff, or whine. He simply existed like a living shield. Across the room, Judge Mercer Rowan adjusted his robe with a little flick of his wrist, as if the fabric itself offended him. Rowan was a man in his late 50s, with a receding hairline, carefully combed silver hair swept back to suggest refinement. His build was thin but rigid, like a hanger stretched inside expensive clothing. Years of unchecked authority had sculpted a face permanently arranged into condescending amusement. The slight smirk under his narrow nose hinted that he enjoyed his power more than he enjoyed fairness. His voice carried the sharp, cutting tone of someone who loved the sound of his own judgments. On the opposite bench sat the county prosecutor, Carla Jensen, mid-40s, small-framed and tidy, her blonde bob and navy suit spotless despite the miserable rain outside. Her career revolved around keeping things neat. Neat cases, neat evidence, neat conclusions. Logan Hayes was not neat. He was an anomaly, a question mark, and Carla hated question marks. The bailiff, Officer Dean Murray, stood near the exit. Murray was in his early 30s, broad shoulders, a good-natured face, and soft brown eyes that contrasted sharply with the cold metal badge on his chest. He respected order, but he also had instincts, and something about Logan unsettled him. Not danger, but uncertainty. It was as if the man in front of him operated on rules older and deeper than written law. Judge Rowan leaned back in his seat and crossed his arms, studying Logan the way a cat watches something trapped. He enjoyed this. He liked seeing powerless men squirm. Logan did not. He stood utterly still, no shifting weight, no frowning, no anger. Inside, his mind remained steady. Years of SEAL training had carved that calm into bone. Yet beneath the discipline sat a weight heavier than the cuffs. Mila. His 15-year-old daughter was somewhere outside the courtroom, sitting alone on a wooden bench in the hallway, waiting. Logan sensed her anxiety even through 2 closed doors. He could almost hear her tapping the zipper of her backpack the way she always did when she worried Kaiser might be taken away. He felt his stomach tighten. He had faced armed men, sinking aircraft, night waters, but nothing pierced deeper than the idea that Mila could lose him. Judge Rowan cleared his throat, gesturing toward Logan with a lazy flick of his pen. "Here we have," Rowan announced, "Logan Hayes, single father and part-time handyman, allegedly involved in violent behavior at a grocery alley. The word handyman dripped from his mouth like something cheap. Logan remained still. He could feel Kaiser tense beside him, sensing the change in the room's energy. Rowan's voice took on a pointed amusement. Interesting that a simple handyman has a military background, a Navy background. Perhaps you'd like to enlighten the court about your service. Carla Jensen's eyes sharpened, like a hawk spotting prey. She wanted answers. The court wanted entertainment. Rowan wanted dominance. Logan wanted out before things escalated. Kaiser shifted slightly, adjusting his position so his body was between Logan and the prosecutor's table. It was instinct, not fear. Kaiser had been wired to protect. Logan lowered his gaze to the dog, feeling a stab of guilt. Kaiser deserved peace, not another battlefield disguised as a courtroom. Judge Rowan tapped his pen again, bored now, irritated that Logan didn't crumble under his stare. "Oh, come on, Mr. Hayes. Surely you remember your call sign. Men like you love those things." Something in Rowan's voice held mockery so sharp, it might as well have been a blade. Logan felt a flicker deep in his chest, an echo of a life he put away, of night raids in countries whose names could never be spoken, of steel corridors inside temporary command bases, with blinking maps and silent prayers, of Kaiser bleeding in the dark, while rotor blades thundered overhead, a past sealed with ink the public would never read. Logan slowly raised his head, meeting Rowan's gaze. His voice when he spoke was low, but crisp. "Ghost Talon." The words struck the air like a hammer hitting glass. Kaiser stayed perfectly still, but his muscles coiled. Carla Jensen stopped writing. Officer Murray straightened unconsciously. Rowan blinked, not a normal blink, but the blink of someone who recognizes danger when their brain catches up with their ego. Ghost Talon. It wasn't a call sign that appeared in newspapers, because those missions never had headlines. It lived only in classified briefings whispered in secure rooms. It belonged to Operation Iron Raven, an off-record mission known only by redacted lines and empty spaces. The court reporter paused typing, as though suddenly afraid to continue. Rowan swallowed, his throat bobbing like a trapped animal trying to hide fear. He glanced toward the door, where two men in suits, federal observers who had remained silent the entire hearing, began quietly communicating with subtle hand signals. Within seconds, they changed posture from passive listeners to active protection. Carla Jensen instinctively closed her folder, unsure why. Officer Murray moved closer to Logan, not to restrain him, but to position himself between Logan and the rest of the room. No one had told him to. The shift was instinct. For a heartbeat, Logan felt the familiar instinct, the assessment of exits, angles, threats, and impact range. Ghost Talon. He had not heard that name spoken aloud in years. He didn't miss it. It had cost him too much. The silence thickened until Rowan broke it with a shaky tap of his pen. "Case dismissed," he muttered, not loudly, not with authority, but with fear. The gavel hit the wood like a surrender flag. Kaiser stood, ready to move the moment Logan did. Logan felt Kaiser's presence like gravity, steady, loyal, unbreakable. He was not alone. He never had been. Logan exhaled once, quietly. Mila would be safe. Kaiser nudged his knee, grounding him. And Ghost Talon, whether the world feared that name or tried to erase it, walked out of that courtroom alive. The morning after the courtroom incident broke open like cracked ice. The air along the coast carried the taste of salt and cold metal, the kind of chill that seeped into bones rather than skin. Logan Hayes drove the old black pickup down the narrow coastal road toward his property. He kept his right hand on the steering wheel, his left hand resting lightly on the console, where Kaiser sat upright, ears alert, gaze fixed forward as if scanning every curve in the road for hidden intent. The dog never truly rested unless Logan did. At the edge of Seabrook Ridge, past weathered mailboxes and half-forgotten boat trailers, sat Logan's home, a modest wood cabin perched quietly above the sea. The exterior was nothing special, painted a dull slate gray that blended into the fog, but inside, the house breathed with the hum of machines. Logan had built a silent perimeter network, micro cameras hidden in birdhouses, motion sensors under the gravel, a private server locked beneath the staircase. The screens inside his small office displayed live feeds, each labeled like clock numbers: North Ridge, Woods Line, back porch, driveway. No device was connected to the internet. Everything was analog, local, unreachable. That was the point. It was the only place he allowed himself to exhale. Logan parked the truck and stepped out. Kaiser followed, without needing a command, landing on the wet ground with controlled precision. The German shepherd shook off the cold, but his eyes never stopped scanning, as though the courthouse tension still lingered on his fur. Logan opened the cabin door, and warmth washed over them, wood stove crackling, faint smell of roasted coffee. He barely set down his keys when feet hurried across the floor, and Mila Hayes nearly slammed into him. Mila was 15, tall for her age, with long dark hair always pulled into a messy ponytail. She was slender but strong from carrying her own surfboard to the cove on weekends. Her skin had a soft olive tone inherited from a mother she barely remembered. Logan never spoke of her, and Mila never pushed. Mila's hazel eyes held a mixture of defiance and vulnerability. She was brave enough to face waves taller than she was, yet terrified of losing the only parent she had. Her voice always held more emotion than she wanted to reveal. Today, worry clung to her like fog. She wore worn-out jeans, a hoodie 3 sizes too big, sleeves pulled over her hands like armor. She tried to appear unaffected but failed. Mila always felt things loudly. Kaiser nudged her leg gently, and she dropped her hand onto the dog's head, fingers curling into fur for reassurance. Logan ruffled her hair, but his mind was still in the courtroom, still feeling the shift when he spoke the name Ghost Talon. He swallowed hard, not letting Mila see the weight dragging behind his eyes. He walked toward his office, Kaiser at his heel. Mila lingered in the doorway, watching as Logan pulled a metal floor panel free. Beneath it lay a sealed compartment containing relics from Operation Iron Raven, encrypted radios, satellite trackers, a sleek black folding knife worn smooth at the edges, and a data drive labeled with red ink. IR-03, Raven Echo. He hesitated, thumb brushing the metal. The compartment contained everything he tried to bury, and yesterday's events cracked open the dirt. He resealed the panel and closed it without touching anything else. The ghosts would stay asleep for now. After changing clothes, dark work pants, faded Henley shirt, tool belt slung at his hip, Logan loaded the pickup with supplies. Much of his income came from handyman work, repairing docks, replacing shutters, fixing pipes. It was simple, predictable, human. Nothing like the fractured logic of war. Kaiser jumped into the passenger seat, tail thumping against the seat. They left for the first job of the day, repairs at Harbor Yarns, the local knitting shop downtown. The shop owner, Sarah Elwood, met them at the entrance. She was in her mid-50s, short and thin, with a bird-like frame, warm brown skin lightly wrinkled from salt air, and short silver curls that framed her face. She had gentle eyes and a voice like soft fabric, warm, even when she scolded someone. Sarah had lost her husband to a commercial fishing accident 10 years earlier, and since then, she had built her world on routine and kindness. She smiled hesitantly at Logan, then knelt to greet Kaiser. The dog leaned toward her politely but stayed alert, sensing Logan's guarded focus. Inside, Logan repaired a broken heating unit, Sarah worked the register, and Kaiser lay at the door, watching the street. While Logan replaced wiring, Sarah occasionally glanced toward him, curious. She knew very little about him, other than he was quiet and reliable. Rumors traveled faster than boats in a harbor, and yesterday's arrest had already spread across town. But Sarah didn't pry. She simply handed him a thermos of tea when he finished. "You look tired," she murmured, but there was no judgment in it. Logan accepted the thermos with the faintest nod. Words were not his strength, but Sarah's kindness landed somewhere deeper than he meant to allow. When the job was finished, Logan and Kaiser drove to the hardware store for supplies. Inside, a teenage cashier named Nate Weller worked the counter. Nate was 17, lanky, with curly blonde hair that refused to be tamed, and jeans perpetually spattered with paint. He was enthusiastic, clumsy, and full of harmless opinions. Nate admired Logan the way young men admire anyone who radiates competence. He talked too fast, yet listened earnestly when Logan spoke. "Hey, Mr. Hayes," Nate said, sliding dog treats across the counter. "For Kaiser, on the house." Kaiser accepted the treat with regal dignity. Logan allowed a subtle grin, barely there, but real. On the drive home, the sky dimmed, clouds rolling in from the sea. Mila sat at the dinner table when Logan returned, homework scattered in uneven piles. She studied him the way children study weather, predictive, cautious. He made dinner, pasta, simple, and Mila spoke little. Kaiser rested under the table, leaning into Mila's legs as though absorbing her nerves. When night fell, Logan walked the perimeter outside the cabin, checking motion sensors and IR camera feeds. Not paranoia, training. Kaiser trotted beside him, tail still, nose sampling the air. Logan paused at the cliff's edge, wind whipping through his clothes. In the distance, lightning flickered. He closed his eyes. Ghost Talon. He had hoped to bury that name long enough that it would stop sounding like him. But names don't stay buried when other people want them exhumed. Back inside, Logan checked the server. One of the security logs flagged a connection attempt, an unknown digital fingerprint searching for the house's IP, bouncing between proxies. Someone was looking for him. The storm outside cracked open with thunder. Mila slept without knowing the world had shifted again. Kaiser rested at Logan's feet, eyelids half closed, but ready. Logan stared at the glowing monitor, jaw tightening. He spoke not aloud, but in his mind, an oath he had sworn once already. If they come, they will not reach her. He shut off the lights and stayed awake until morning. Rain had washed the night away, leaving Seabrook Ridge wrapped in an overcast hush. The sky was a lid of dull pewter. The sea breathed against the harbor walls like an animal saving energy before a leap. Logan Hayes drove the pickup into town with Kaiser beside him, intending only to grab a part needed for a furnace repair. He had slept barely an hour. The breach attempt on his server pulsed in his skull like a silent alarm. He wanted today to be ordinary. He wanted to disappear into the noise of other people's errands. But the world rarely gave ghosts that luxury. Behind the general store, a narrow service alley cut between stacks of wooden crates and dumpsters. Logan only turned into it because Kaiser suddenly lifted his head, one ear twitching. The dog's instincts rarely triggered without reason. Kaiser was 6 years old, large-bodied with stark black and tan fur, bred for intelligence and precision. His scars, thin white lines across the chest and a nick in his right ear, revealed a life of training beyond any ordinary family pet. He had been born in a military kennel overseas, rejected early for being too independent. Logan thought that made him perfect. A voice echoed ahead, strained, tight with fear. Logan eased the truck to a stop, opened the door silently, hand signaling Kaiser to stay low. In the alley, two boys cornered another against the wall. The victim, Eli Turner, was a friend of Mila's. Eli was 15, with curly brown hair and a narrow frame, the kind of kid whose bones always seemed too fragile for the weight he carried mentally. His posture shifted between defiance and dread. Eli excelled academically, too bright for his own social safety, and teachers adored him. Students didn't. The aggressors loomed larger and angrier. Derek Lawson, 17, tall with a wrestler's build and a streak of reckless arrogance. He wore a varsity jacket that fit like entitlement. His henchman, Tyler Briggs, was shorter but broad, acne dotting his jawline, messy ginger hair sticking out from beneath a cheap beanie. Tyler was the kind of kid who needed someone stronger to tell him who to be. Tyler shoved Eli's backpack into his chest, voice full of venom. "Empty it." Eli clutched his bag tighter, shaking his head. "I don't have anything." Derek laughed sharply, a humor that didn't reach his eyes. "You always have something. Your laptop, your wallet, your pride." Logan stepped forward, silently. Kaiser's paws made no sound on the damp pavement. Logan's voice, when he spoke, was calm, not loud, not angry, simply decisive. "Let him go." Derek turned, sizing up the stranger. Broad shoulders under a gray work shirt, jaw squared with 2 days of stubble, hair dark and slightly overgrown at the sides. Logan looked like a man who had done hard physical work his entire life, but his eyes were what made Derek falter. They were too still, too knowing. Tyler muttered, "Just some handyman." Kaiser growled, low, controlled, vibrating through the space. Even then, Derek smirked, stepping closer. "You don't scare me." Logan didn't respond. He moved. To onlookers, it might have seemed like magic. To Logan, it was muscle memory older than civilian life. Derek's hand shot out first, sloppy, fueled by bravado. Logan caught the wrist, pivoted, redirected the momentum, and Derek's back hit the wall before Derek understood anything had happened. Tyler lunged next, swinging wild. Kaiser intercepted, positioning between Logan and the attacker, teeth bared, not biting, just warning. Tyler froze. Even bullies respected a dog with purpose. Logan angled his body protectively so the boys would see only his neutrality, not his readiness to escalate. "Walk away." That was all, and it should have ended there, but humiliation turned quickly to spite. You attacked us, Tyler yelled suddenly, voice frantic as he clutched his own wrist like it had been broken. He assaulted us. Eli stepped forward, desperate to speak. No, he didn't. You were... Derek cut him off. Shut up, nerd. At that exact moment, Deputy Brooks rounded the corner from the main street, coffee cup in one hand, other hand loosely near his radio. Deputy Travis Brooks was in his early 40s, tall with a thick torso and a permanent scowl carved across a stubble-covered jaw. Years of shift work had left bags beneath his sharp gray eyes, and his uniform strained slightly at the buttons from too many convenience store meals. His father had been a cop, and his grandfather before that. Duty was inheritance, not choice. Brooks saw two teenagers looking insulted, a smaller kid crying, Logan positioned closest to them, and a large working dog glaring like a soldier waiting for orders. What's going on here? Brooks demanded. He attacked us, Derek insisted. We were just talking to Eli. Kicked us out of nowhere, Tyler added, swiping at an imaginary injury. Eli tried to speak, but Brooks raised a hand to silence him. Kaiser shifted closer to Logan's leg, reading tension. Brooks glanced up at the broken security camera perched on the corner of the store building. A plastic bag half covered the lens, swinging in the wind. Conveniently non-functional, Brooks sighed heavily. Logan Hayes, you're coming with me until we sort this out. Logan kept his hands visible, shoulders relaxed. Deputy, you can ask the... Brooks lifted his radio. Station, bring the cruiser, possible assault of minors. The radio crackled. Logan didn't resist. Resistance would only make Mila suffer for it later. Brooks approached, pulling out handcuffs. Hands behind your back. Kaiser moved, hackles raised. His teeth just barely grazed Brooks's sleeve. A warning. Brooks stiffened. Control your dog. Logan spoke softly, and Kaiser dropped instantly into a sit. The discipline astonished Brooks, and unsettled him. Logan offered his wrists, accepting the cuffs. With no argument, his expression was flat, unreadable. Inside, a small storm pressed at his ribs, not fear for himself, but fear of what this would do to Mila when gossip hit school halls. As Brooks led him toward the car, Derek raised his phone. A picture, Logan cuffed, Kaiser restrained. And just like that, Seabrook Ridge birthed a rumor. A dangerous man lives in the cabin by the cliffs. A man who fights without hesitation. A dog trained to attack on command. Inside the squad car, Logan stared at the rain streaking across the window glass. Kaiser, locked in the truck bed, held eye contact with him through the tinted separation. He whispered inwardly, with a mouth sound, I promised her ordinary. And I'm breaking it already. The wheels hissed over wet pavement. Somewhere behind them, Eli stood frozen, clutching his backpack like it was armor. The storm had officially found them. Morning fog clung to the sheriff's station like damp wool, muting the colors of patrol cars and swallowing the horizon. Logan Hayes sat in a small interview room, wrists marked faintly where handcuffs had been, posture straight but relaxed, eyes focused on the one-way mirror rather than the camera in the corner. He was trying to count his breaths evenly. Training taught him that stillness was a weapon. Panic was noise. Calm was clarity. Kaiser was not allowed inside. The dog remained in Logan's truck outside, head lifted, amber eyes fixed on the entrance as if willing the door to release his human. Sheriff Dana Whitlock entered with a stack of folders. Dana was in her 40s, tall, lean, with a presence that filled a room before her boots crossed the threshold. Her uniform fit neatly across her broad shoulders, and her blonde hair, cropped to her jaw and streaked with silver, looked like it had been cut in a kitchen with scissors and zero patience. Dana had the kind of angular features that appeared carved rather than grown. Sharp cheekbones, firm jaw, eyes an unusual shade of steel blue. Those eyes missed nothing. Dana had been a Marine once, long before Seabrook Ridge. She didn't talk about her tours, but the limp in her left knee gave traces of the explosion that ended her service, not her instinct for command. She carried an air of restrained judgment. She didn't trust easily, and she trusted Logan even less after yesterday's alley incident made the rumors burn through town like gasoline. She sat across from him, folded her hands, and spoke in a low tone. Logan Hayes, according to everything in our system, you barely exist. Logan didn't move. Sounds like a paperwork problem. Dana slid a thin file toward him. This is your background check. It's 4 pages long. 4 pages for a 40-year-old man. That's not normal. Logan stayed silent. Dana leaned back, studying him, the way a predator measures distance before striking. No social security records before 8 years ago. No tax filings before that, no property, no phone contracts. Even your driver's license trail jump states like a skipping stone. She tapped us a finger against the file. People who disappear themselves usually have something to hide. Logan met her stare without blinking. Or something to protect. The air shifted. Dana set her jaw. Before she could press further, the door opened and Deputy Travis Brooks stepped in. Travis looked irritated, as if the very existence of paperwork insulted him. His uniform shirt was wrinkled, and one corner of his badge had dulled from habitually rubbing it when nervous. Judge Rowan wants him transferred directly to his courtroom. First appearance hearing, today. Dana's eyes narrowed. Judge Rowan, of course. Judge Rowan, Malcolm Rowan, was the kind of man who mistook authority for identity. Late 50s, tall and heavy-set, with a goatee trimmed too sharply, he wore arrogance like a tailored suit. He enjoyed public rulings, dramatic pauses, and humiliating defendants just enough to make reporters smile. People whispered that the bench only made Rowan more of what he already was, someone who loved power more than justice. Dana stood abruptly. That isn't procedure. He's not charged with anything yet. Judge said it's his courtroom, Brooks replied. Said it's urgent. Dana muttered something into her teeth that was surely not legal terminology. Logan was escorted to the squad car. He didn't resist. Resistance wasted energy. Outside, Kaiser stood in the truck bed, body coiled. When Logan approached, Kaiser leaned forward until his nose touched Logan's cuffed wrists. His breath was warm, steadying. The dog didn't bark. Kaiser didn't bark unless he intended violence. Logan lowered his gaze to him. Stay. Kaiser obeyed, but the implied promise in the dog's unblinking stare was unmistakable. I won't stop watching. Judge Rowan's courtroom was already filling by the time Logan entered. Seabrook Ridge lived for gossip. Shop owners whispered, teenagers gawked, and a reporter from the local coastal paper practically vibrated with excitement. Logan's eyes swept the room, not with fear, but calculation. 2 exits in the back, 1 side door by the bench. Security lax, no federal presence. Kaiser remained outside, a black silhouette visible through the glass doors. Judge Rowan studied Logan with the satisfaction of a man certain of his eventual triumph. Mr. Hayes, Rowan boomed, we meet again. Logan didn't respond. Rowan leaned forward. Your arrest yesterday brings up questions, particularly regarding your background. You're quite an enigma. Dana, stationed at the side of the courtroom, crossed her arms. She didn't like Rowan, but she also didn't like unexplained ghosts living in her jurisdiction. Rowan flipped a page dramatically. Military records exist, barely. Entire sections redacted. Can you clarify your service branch? Silence. Rowan smirked. Oh, come now. Surely you remember where you served. This wasn't about truth. It was bait. Rowan pressed harder. Tell the court your role. Infantry, logistics, perhaps, what do they call it? Special operations? Logan's jaw flexed. Every instinct urged restraint. Rowan went for the kill. Or were you merely supportive staff who tells stories to impress single mothers and cashiers? Something behind Logan's eyes shifted. Dana almost spoke, but a sound interrupted. The courtroom doors burst open. A man entered wearing a service uniform. His posture was ramrod straight, medals aligned perfectly. Colonel Samuel Rowan, Judge Rowan's older brother. Samuel was the opposite of Malcolm. Tall, sinewy, scars tucked beneath the collar of his dress shirt. His face carried weather and grit, salt and pepper hair trimmed to regulation length, and a gaze honed by combat and consequence. His aura wasn't loud like his brother's. It was dangerous because it was controlled. Samuel strode to the front without acknowledging the judge. Proceedings end now. Judge Rowan blinked. Excuse me? Samuel pulled a sealed folder from his inner coat pocket. Logan Hayes falls under Protection Directive 16B, per Department of Defense. He is classified under Restricted Service Clearance. This court has no jurisdiction to question him. Rowan sputtered. Protection Directive? For a handyman? Don't insult me. Samuel's voice dropped. He's not a handyman. He handed the judge a single page. The judge scanned it. Every drop of blood left his face. Stamped at the top. Operation Iron Raven. Access level. Blood red. Rowan's voice cracked. This is classified. Samuel's reply was ice. Which is why you will dismiss this case, seal your transcripts, and never summon this man again. The judge swallowed. And if I don't? Samuel leaned in, voice low enough that only Logan and the judge heard. You know what happens to people who expose red-level assets. The government erases the exposure, and the person who caused it. Rowan dropped the gavel like it burned him. Case dismissed. Mr. Hayes is free to go. No applause, no sound, just the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Dana stared at Logan as he walked out, flanked by Samuel Rowan like a shadow. Her instincts were right. Logan wasn't just hiding something. He was someone the system wanted hidden. Outside the courthouse, Kaiser jumped down from the truck bed and pressed against Logan's leg, relieved but alert. Just before stepping into the cold daylight, Logan felt Samuel's hand on his shoulder. Samuel whispered, voice weighted with reluctant respect. You weren't supposed to surface. Whoever found you won't stop. Logan met his stare. I know. They walked toward the parking lot, toward the storm neither could prevent. The storm came without warning, dragging a wall of salt air and needle-sharp rain across Seabrook Ridge. The night was thick, heavy, a vacuum where sound seemed swallowed whole. Inside the cabin, every monitor glowed like a silent constellation on the wall of Logan Hayes' security office. He stood still, one palm resting against the desk, the other hanging loosely at his side, as if his body had not yet accepted the pace of his heartbeat. Kaiser paced the narrow room, nails tapping against the floor in short, controlled steps. Breath low and nose tilted toward the air vents, collecting information the way soldiers use radios. Ever since the courtroom, since the moment Colonel Samuel Rowan invoked federal protection and forced Judge Rowan to shut down the case, Logan had known peace would not follow. Protection only made predators more desperate. Mila sat on the couch in the living room, geometry homework open in front of her, though her eyes barely tracked the equations. Her hair, dark and undone, stuck to her cheek every time she brushed it back with a trembling hand. She wanted to ask questions but feared the answers. She had inherited her father's silent strength, but none of his numbness. Logan checked the newest camera feed. A black SUV with deep-tinted windows sat 3 houses down. Engine on, no lights, no movement. Too patient to be locals, too still to be harmless. That kind of stillness belonged to trained men, mercenaries who knew how to avoid camera angles, who knew that waiting was a weapon. The SUV wasn't the only sign. At 10:43 p.m., motion sensor N12 lit red, northwest side, woods line. 1 heat signature, then 2, then 3. They were coordinated, spaced evenly, moving in a slow fan pattern like wolves testing a herd fence. Logan didn't panic, he recalculated. Kaiser stiffened, a silent ripple moving down his back. Logan opened a concealed bustle in the office floor and retrieved a black case. Inside, relics of a man who wasn't supposed to exist. A compact suppressed pistol, encrypted radio, and a combat knife with the symbol of Iron Raven fading from the hilt. He stared for 1 heartbeat too long. He hated how easy it felt to become that version of himself again. Mila's voice came from behind him, soft and cracked. Dad, why are they still here? He swallowed the ache in his throat. Basement safe room, now. No raised voice, no panic, just command. Mila obeyed. Kaiser escorted her down the stairs, posture straight, ears tilted back, every step placed with the precision of a dog trained to guard a single life above all others. When the safe room door sealed, Logan exhaled once, slow, final. He checked the live map overlay of the property. The mercenaries weren't here to kill him. If they wanted him dead, they would have chosen a rooftop sniper or a silenced round through a kitchen window hours ago. They wanted leverage. They wanted the boy, Eli Turner. Earlier, the same mercenaries used Eli as bait in the alley, testing Logan's response time, seeing how quickly Ghost Talon still reacted to danger. They had learned Logan didn't run from threats. He ran toward them. So tonight, Logan decided not to wait. He whispered to Kaiser, now back at his side, "Track." Kaiser sprinted to the side exit, and they vanished into the storm. The wind shredded visibility, but Logan moved from muscle memory, not eyesight. The community center construction site loomed, unfinished skeleton of steel beams and concrete forms. A perfect hunting ground, open sight lines, no civilians, dozens of angles for ambush. 3 armed mercenaries moved through the scaffolding with night vision goggles and suppressed rifles. A 4th kept lookout on the ridge. Logan and Kaiser approached through the drainage trench, silent, unseen. Kaiser signaled the closest enemy with a tilt of his head. Logan struck fast, An arm locked, momentum shifted, body silently lowered to the floor. The second mercenary raised his rifle, but Kaiser launched low, clamping onto the wrist with surgical precision. Before the man could shout, Logan's knife hit the metal railing beside him, just close enough to end the fight without ending a life. Total engagement time, less than 30 seconds. A voice echoed from deeper in the structure, another mercenary speaking into a radio. "Package secured. If Ghost Talon shows, capture, do not kill." Logan froze. Package, Eli. They weren't bluffing. Kaiser slipped through openings in the beams, nose down, tracking Eli's scent. Logan followed, footsteps silent, body movements reduced to the inefficiency of breath alone. He found Eli tied to a support column, shivering, terrified but alive. One cut of the knife freed him. "Run to the sheriff's fuel station. Don't look back," Logan said without softness. Eli bolted. The mercenaries never saw him leave. Meanwhile, across town, Judge Malcolm Rowan sat in his chambers with a glass of whiskey untouched before him. He looked older than he had that morning. His reflection in the window seemed to accuse him. His hands shook as he opened a secure video call line, 4 federal agencies simultaneously. He confessed, 7 years earlier, he had carelessly shared operational details of Iron Raven during a private function. That breach reached mercenary channels and triggered the ambush that nearly wiped out the entire unit. His voice cracked. "Logan Hayes saved lives. My pride cost them." He hit send. No turning back. Back at the cabin, Mila hugged her knees in the safe room, listening to muffled footsteps upstairs. Wood creaked. A mercenary whispered into a radio. Mila held her breath the way Kaiser taught her. Inhale 5 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8. The steps grew closer. A shadow moved outside the door. Then Logan spoke, calm, emotionless, lethal. "You're in my house." The fight lasted seconds. Thuds, a crash, silence. Then Kaiser's familiar panting. Mila opened her eyes. "It's done," Logan murmured. Outside, federal vehicles with government plates surrounded the cabin. Helicopter lights washed the trees in white. The last mercenary team was taken alive. The corporation funding them was exposed. Days later, Logan, Mila, and Kaiser left Seabrook Ridge without a goodbye. 6 months later, a new sheriff was sworn in. Colonel Rowan retired. No one knew where the man once called Ghost Talon went. Logan chose being a father over being a weapon. Ghost Talon slept until the world needed a storm again. In the quiet after every storm, we learn that strength is not the absence of fear, but the choice to keep protecting what we love even when no one sees. Logan, Mila, and Kaiser remind us that sometimes miracles don't arrive with thunder. They arrive quietly, in the courage to start again. Maybe God sends certain people into our lives, not to change our path, but to steady our steps. And just like the unseen hand that guards us through ordinary days, He watches over every storm we survive. If this story touched something inside you, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe so more souls can find these reminders of faith, resilience, and second chances. May God bless every viewer who reads this, protect your homes as fiercely as Logan protected his, and guide your path toward your own quiet miracles.